Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to day 49 of Humanity Rising. Every day since the 22nd of May, we've been broadcasting live to about 10, 15, sometimes 20,000 people a day through our various partners, Awake TV and various other organizations, and providing essentially an open space for people from all over the world to come together and to share their experiences as we all navigate through this unprecedented pandemic, unique in human history. This is the first time when virtually everyone everywhere is undergoing the same experience, and therefore we're all in the same conversation. So what we at Ubiquity University thought would be of service is just simply to provide an opportunity for deep discussions on how we can come together more effectively to give shape to the post-pandemic world in a way that's more sustainable and resilient and abundant and healthy and in alignment with natural systems. We have three programmatic areas. The first one we covered for about 10 days was around what we called strategies for change. All the major indicators are getting worse, not better. Scientists are saying that we have a diminishing time frame to turn this around. There are millions of NGOs working on every conceivable issue, and yet the major indicators are getting worse. So how do we come together as a movement so that we can enhance our strategic effectiveness and actually make a difference in the post-pandemic world? Secondly, we then convened about 10 days on what we call new mindsets for a new world, in the spirit of Einstein, who said that the consciousness that produced the problem can't solve the problem. What are the new modes of consciousness? What's the new storyline, the new narrative that humanity must begin to tell itself in order for us to embrace the solutions, which is the third program, Solutions Making a Difference. And the title of the session today was very intriguing. The solutions have been with us for some time. Some solutions have been around for decades, and yet they're not being implemented by design, not because they're not known about, but because they're not wanted. So the critical relationship between strategies for change and new mindsets for a new world, and then solutions making a difference, these three programmatic areas, lies around the question, how do we change consciousness in a strategic way so that the world embraces solutions that have been staring us in the face and could solve the problems that we're in? It's an extraordinary moment. We're not in this crisis because we don't know how to solve it. We're in this crisis because we refuse to solve it. And that's what we're going to grapple with today. Solutions that are making a difference. And a discussion about how we can elevate human consciousness such that they're embraced at a critical mass so they can be globally scaled. You've seen Jan Golding before. He's the co-founder of Tomorrow's World and Codes for a Healthy Earth. He lives in Israel, so he's coming to us from Jerusalem. And he has convened a splendid panel that I can hardly wait to hear. So Jan, I will turn the program now over to you. and would encourage everyone listening to put your questions and comments in the chat box. And then Jan and the panelists will be tracking what you're writing, and will be as interactive as we possibly can. Thank you, everyone. Jan?
Thank you, Jim. Wow. What a blessing to be here again at this time, and especially for this new spiral that we're going into now, as you mentioned, solutions that make a difference. And yeah, it's really a blessing to be here, and to, especially with all these amazing people and solutionaries, as the new term has been coined, probably not that long ago, but yeah, leading solutionaries in their field, feeling very blessed that they agreed to come and join this panel. We'll meet them soon. And yeah, just a little bit about my background with regards to solutions, because yeah, it's been a real passion for me for many years now. You know, exploring solutions, investigating solutions, you know, finding what are the solutions that can help make all the solutions visible. That's been a big question for me. My background to some extent has been living and co-founding an eco-village in South Africa from 2003 to 2011. And during that time, I really got to experience many diverse aspects of living on the land, living in community, living in harmony with nature as much as possible, growing our own food. We were completely off the grid, you know, pumping our own water from a spring with solar panel, and building our own houses with materials from the land, and yeah, just really getting to experience, you know, what living in harmony with nature can be like, and just living in a house with walls that breathe and eating food from your own garden is something most people don't get to experience this at this time. So, you know, obviously the solutions are much broader than that, but it really gave me a sense of yeah, the possibilities in terms of living in harmony with nature, and how there are so many solutions. I think during this time where I was also living in the eco-village, I really started to explore many different solutions around the world, and really coming to this movement, this understanding, this perception of the global movement of solutions. And so many, you know, millions, literally, as Jim said, there are millions of organizations around the world who each in their own unique way are finding ways to contribute to a better world for all. And so indeed the title of this session was "The Solutions to the World Already, the Solutions to the World's Problems Already Exist. Now what?" And it was actually Maddy Harland, who just joined us now, who actually kind of put that very concisely in a quote for an event that I organized called Global Solutions Day. So that's been part of my background. I co-created a platform called Solutions Revolution, and hosted an online event called Solutions for a Global Transition that was with United Earth, because I was seeing, you know, unity and transdisciplinary collaboration as such a key element to, you know, implementing our solutions. Because like Jim said, you know, all the solutions, they're already out there, but we're just so fragmented. And because most of the real solutions, the holistic solutions, the regenerative solutions that we have aren't focusing on profit and centralizing power and wealth, but really quite the opposite, of bringing the power back to the people and focusing our energy on healing the biosphere, healing the ecosystems, healing our cultural trauma, our personal trauma. And yeah, so as most of these solutions aren't profitable and really kind of threaten the existing power structures, these solutions aren't really receiving the attention they deserve, and the support and the promotion and the funding they deserve. You know, 99%, if not more, of these millions of organizations are all struggling for funding to a large extent, investing much of their time that could otherwise be invested in implementing the solutions and scaling the solutions. They're struggling to, you know, pay their staff and pay their bills. So this is really now an opportunity, and I'm so grateful to Humanity Rising, because, you know, part of the work, as I see it, within this movement is how can we make ourselves visible as a movement that is aligned in purpose and vision, as well as all the abundant wealth of solutions, the diversity of solutions that we're stewarding and developing continually in so many ways. So really, to make the solutions visible to the world, to the general public, who for the most part are just, you know, watching the media, watching the mainstream media on the news that is just bad news every day coming at us, when really behind the scenes, under the radar of the corporate media, there is so much good news, so much inspiring and meaningful initiatives and actions that are just happening, that are really making a difference on the ground. And so with that, we will be also talking with the panel today to get an insight into what some of those actions are. And yeah, I think one of today, my work is really focusing on how can we create the cultural conditions for whole system healing. What are the systemic solutions to really start to transform our social systems in ways that these solutions don't have to struggle, but are actually supported inherently through the governance structures, through the new economic models that we are evolving. So yeah, one of the initiatives that I've been working on and developing with Dr. Shelley Ostroff is Codes for a Healthy Earth. And that is really kind of recognizing the need within the movement for a unifying framework. You know, I mean, it's really, we realize that we cannot rely on the existing power structures, on our governments to make the urgent and necessary changes. It's really up to us as citizens to organize, to self-organize around solutions, around our best wisdom and practices for how we can live in harmony with each other and with all of life. And, you know, given that these solutions are already here, but we're not finding the ways to bring them to their fullest expression, Codes for a Healthy Earth is an offering that can help the movement come into alignment around organizing principles. And some people today will speak to permaculture as you know, as a design framework that really allows us to work with principles of design. And when we bring it back to principles, it allows new methods and new models to be implemented and adapted to many, many diverse conditions, whether it's cultural or climatic. And so yeah, just in closing, one of the first initiatives that is coming out of Codes for a Healthy Earth, the codes really kind of, the primary focus, I think, of the Codes for a Healthy Earth is recognizing that as a species, we need to really get clear about what our priorities are. And the codes outline the care of the planet and ensuring that all its inhabitants, all ecosystems have exactly what they need to thrive. And the essence of that the foundation of thriving, of a healthy life and healthy living conditions starts with water. And we see that across many cultures. We see that universally, that water is really such a unifying element, foundation of life. And so the first global initiative for Codes for a Healthy Earth is a proposal for a world water law. And that, just to give you a brief summary, the World Water Law invites all of humanity to unite around prioritizing the healing of the planetary waters and water cycle. This foundational law works to ensure that all humans and animals have guaranteed access to natural, uncontaminated water. It holds each and every individual, organization, business sector, and government fully accountable for their impact on water. Ultimately, the World Water Law activates a whole system healing response that addresses many of the root causes of our escalating global crises. So that's one offering into the mix of solutions. It's a systemic solution. And yeah, if you'd like to learn more about the Codes for a Healthy Earth and the World Water Law, I suggest you go to www.codes.earth. I'll put some links in the chat soon. So without further ado, I will introduce you to our amazing panel today. We'll be starting with Dr. Ousmane Ali Pame. Ousmane is a university professor of literature, former mayor of the eco-town of Guédé Chantier in Senegal. He's president of the Global Ecovillage Network Africa and a regional community leader. He designs, coordinates international academic programs in ecovillages in Senegal. Dr. Pame is founder and president of Redes, which is a network for ecovillages and the emergence and development in the Sahel region, with government agencies, local governments, international NGOs, and universities. Regis is now creating eco-village hubs in Senegal and a trans-border eco-village hub between Senegal and Mauritania. So, Dr. Ousmane, I invite you to turn your camera on. Welcome, and if you can unmute your microphone.
Oh, thank you, Jan, and thank you, Human Rising, also for this event. It's really important, crucial at this moment, you know, of the crisis, ecological crisis, to come together as brothers and sisters and work together to regenerate our ecosystems. And congratulations on this very important, you know, initiative. So, as Jan has said, wait a minute. Yeah, here in Redes, we are working to create, you know, eco-village hubs in the north of Senegal and southern Mauritania, and also in the center of Senegal. And this area is part of the Sahel region. And the Sahel region is just under the Sahara Desert. And so it goes from Mauritania, Senegal on the west coast of Africa to all the way to Eritrea, Ethiopia on the other side. I wonder if you can see my presentation at the moment. Right.
Yeah,
great. There's a lady I would like to introduce to you first. Her name is Kumba Kebe-Cham. She was born when the last century was just 4 years old, and she passed away not long ago in 2012. And I'm the grandson of this lady, Kumba Kebe-Cham. She was a shepherdess. And she had around 90 cows, and you know, when she was young, I mean, the whole place in the north of Senegal was very, very green, exuberant, with a diversity of wildlife, birds, and she could move from one village to the other without seeing the sun, because the trees were very, very thick, and again, there were all sorts of animals. And further down, you can see another old man here. He's still alive. And then this one was attacked in the north, well, in the late 50s, in the north of Senegal by a lion. And when you visit him today, you can see, you know, the scars and all this. And today's, you know, generations can hardly believe all these stories, because the landscape has gone to something like this now. And you know, all the wild animals have gone, and it's very, very hot. And our rainy seasons are very short and totally irregular. And this also encourage, you know, the young people to leave the villages to go to the cities or to cross the desert and go into Southern Europe. And for us, of course, this is not acceptable. And we need to do something about this, because we already know that the causes of this is, you know, bad farming practices with bad herding practices, all this together. And, you know, this has led to the degradation of the ecosystems in the region. So on River Senegal, we have 2 dams. And these 2 dams have completely changed the water cycle here. And the waters has become stagnant. And as the waters do not move, and also it's a very hot region, parasites have invaded then the waters. And people, you know, who drink this water, you know, get, of course, sick, and the animals as well. Many of these trees have been cut down, because also the government, you know, the government wanted also to promote agriculture, modern agriculture, which means, you know, producing rice with lots of chemicals and lots of all sorts of sites. And you know, now we've seen that we are in a complete deadlock. So, and then the governments also in the area have come with a solution known as a Green Wall project, which is a project from all the Sahel regions, all the Sahel countries, and it's initiated by the African Union. It's a wall 15 kilometers wide and 7,600, you know, long, where people plant trees to stop the encroachment of the desert. So, and also communities get organized. Redes communities are within this also this continental project. So we developed, you know, permaculture projects in 7 communities in the north of Senegal, and we were supported in this by the UK government and also by Global Ecovillage Network. So, and then 3,000 women were trained into organic agriculture, which means no chemicals, and also the use of local technologies and local seeds and all this. So we got really, really successful with these projects, and this gave us the idea of expanding this community of 7 villages into a much bigger one. Because on the other side, also in southern Mauritania, there's a wonderful village called Loboudou, and they were also facing the same issues. And then they decided to fence 18 hectares to keep the wandering animals, roaming animals out of this space. And in less than 10 years, it just became a real forest. I'm not talking about one tree here and another tree over there. It's very, very thick, and also with local species. It has now become a real sanctuary for animals, for birds, and the village receives less and less sandstorms, and all year round they have food. And also because this forest is close to a river, to River Senegal, so this part of the river is also abundant in fish. So fishing birds are back, and then the full cycle of life is back. So Redes was born out of this. Redes is the Network for Ecovillage Emergence and Development in the Sahel. So Redes was then born out of these initiatives. So the idea was now, the idea we're developing now is to bring together 50 villages in Mauritania and 50 villages in Senegal, come together and fight against desertification. We have organized a number of activities. We have also, signed MOUs, partnership agreements with a number of municipalities in Senegal as well as in Mauritania. So, and here we can see, I mean, where these two major emerging eco-village hubs are located. One in the center of Senegal, about 2 hours away from Dakar, and the other is in the north. So, and the pictures you can see here are also in the north. The first year we camped in the wilderness. So we invited, you know, people from all the surrounding satellite villages. They came together, and then we spent the day in the bush, you know, talking about, well, there's no bush, I mean, in the desert, but talking about, you know, permaculture, how to restore this environment, and how also to recreate abundance in this. And then the leadership of women and the youth in this region is also extremely important. And see the initial, you know, the project was also blessed by you know, the elders from different communities. And here are part of the projects we've succeeded. One in the herding village in the north, Madina Fresbe, and there are continuous cycles of discussions with people. And we have also open schools where we teach farmers how to produce compost, how to fight against pests, how to reproduce their own seeds. And also with the partnership with Damanhur, we have offered also trainings to women. Damanhur is an eco-village in Italy, and together we have worked, you know, to organize sessions to train women to process vegetables, and because our raining season is very short, it's very important, you know, to produce food and to keep it somewhere. Later in the year, when there's nothing available, they can put it back into to improve their diets, or to put it in the market to improve their diets, or also to sell and generate, you know, right. So here is a community training center that we are building now in the north of Senegal, and this training center, it's very, very, I mean, all the women organizations, local governments will come here, you know, to get training so that we can coordinate. And also what's really important here is we have people from Mauritania, you know, who are also members of REDES who came, and some of them have never crossed the border, because also part of the mission of REDES is also to heal all these people from this colonial, you know, sickness. I mean, people are now invaded with fear and everything. Some of them have do not dare to cross the borders. And now we are coming together to work together on important issues together, you know. And of course, education is very, very important. REDES has been building schools, has been offering school materials to encourage young children to come and learn. And here, for example, you know, we receive international students and local students, and we go to villages together, you know, to build the classrooms. And it's really, really fascinating to see that, you know, in some villages where people do not have schools, now the kids can read and write, can help also their families with, you know, their daily businesses. So REDES has also an international service learning program where, so these students, when they come, they work on a number of sectors. It can be health, education, greening, you know, and so this is also part of the mission that REDES has given itself, you know, to educate also people to come and learn about local cultures, and also local communities that host these students also learn from the students. So, I don't know how I'm doing on time, but I mean, I can just wait for the water part and for the second round.
That sounds perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow, that was very inspiring. I look forward to hearing more. Thank you so much, Ousmane. So up next is Ilana Zeitzer from the Re-Earth Initiative. Ilana is a 23-year-old climate activist and master's student. She studies ecology at the SUNY ESF, focusing on plant-fungal interactions. She's a member of We the Planet, Polluters Out, Fridays for Future Syracuse, and Sunrise. She also works on projects exploring art as a form of scientific and environmental communication. She is passionate about conservation and restoration of natural ecosystems, science communication, and environmental justice. Welcome, Ilana. Great you can be here.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here. So right now, one of my main groups is the Re-Earth Initiative. So Re-Earth Initiative started out as a campaign called We the Planet, focused starting the month before Earth Day, so we're relatively new. But we were focusing on, as quarantine started, how to get people to still care about the environment, how to get people involved in something for Earth Day, since a whole slew of youth programs found themselves unable to do their planned protests. There were marches planned, there were big events, and we all had about a few weeks, a month or so to figure out something new to do that we had already been planning for multiple months. And in that confusion, We the Planet, which is now Re-Earth Initiative, came to start as a campaign to encourage everyone and anyone to take the time to take a video of themselves making 2 pledges for the year, one individual action and one systematic action. Individual actions could be anything from saying, I'm going to learn about, more about permaculture, to I'm going to plant native plants in my garden, to more extreme, I'm going to every day go out and protest for the planet. And systemic actions could be working towards, government rules, towards universities, getting polluters out of climate negotiations, all these different options. And we just spent an entire month trying to get as many people on board as possible, those who are already involved and those who are not very involved in the environmental action movement. At the end of that month, we had a few thousand people participate in our pledges, and we realized we couldn't stop there. We had to help all of these people learn how to actually complete their pledges. So Re-Earth Initiative was formed as a way to encourage people to get their pledge from action, but also to focus on 3 main things in the environmental activism groups, which is inclusivity, accessibility, and unity. So inclusivity, we understand there are many different groups affected by the environmental crisis, and they're not always getting the amount of recognition they deserve. They're not always being paid attention to, and that was something very important to us. Accessibility. So the environmental movement is wonderful, but many youth are having trouble figuring out how to get involved. Myself, I first heard about the environmental crisis in about 5th grade. I have a very clear memory of me staring at Time for Kids magazine, and it was talking about something called global warming, but it made it sound like, it'd be solved by 2020, because that same issue also, I just remember, told us we'd have a hotel on the moon at the same by now. But as I was growing up, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to help fix this. And it wasn't being fixed by 2020, obviously, as we're now here. But I had trouble finding how to get involved in the environmental movement. I started with clubs at my school, but I really only ever interacted with people around me. I became the weird environmental person at my school. That's what I was known for, but there weren't too many others like me. And it wasn't until about a few months ago now that I really figured out how to get involved in the international youth environmental movements. And within a few weeks of figuring that out, I was able to interact with people around the world. I've had conference calls with people in India and Africa, in Chile, and China, kind of everywhere around the world. And that for me was extremely amazing, but it took me years to actually get there. And accessibility was really important to us because you shouldn't have to spend years trying to figure out how to come and become part of this movement. So we wanted to make sure it was super easy for anyone who's interested, from having a ton of knowledge to having no knowledge, how you can get involved. we also recognize not everyone has the same abilities to do different actions. Not everyone is physically able to protest every day for various reasons, or even every week or month. Not everyone's able to afford, reusable water bottles that are eco-friendly without plastic. But we all have something we can do in some way or some form. And we wanted to keep ourselves aware of that and promote options that could work for as many people as possible. In Unity, we try and connect with different organizations, different activists to pull them in and show off what they're doing. As was mentioned earlier, there's thousands, if not millions, of organizations working towards the same or similar goals. And so we want to make it so people know these organizations exist. If you are part of Re-Earth and you're really passionate about water, we want to connect you with the groups doing water. If you're passionate about pollinators, we want to connect you with those groups too. Because that's their focus, then you can get more into that. That's kind of where that started. So we started doing toolkits and webinars. Every few weeks, we focus on a different topic. So previously, we focused on water accessibility. We have focused on plastics. In about a month, we'll be talking about pollinators, and then we'll switch to oceans, food, school, all different areas, trying to cover as much as possible, but give basic information so people have a starting point and also have resources to learn more. So our big thing for pushing forward solutions is to educate and welcome people into these movements and work for action. So that's kind of where we started as Re-Earth Initiative. We're only a few months old. This past month, we've been focusing on really inclusivity. We've been focusing on racism, both around the world and in the environmental movement, with everything that's happened recently. We're about to finish that up, but carry on the things we've learned as an org from that into our future years. So that's a bit about Re-Earth. I'm also involved with a few other youth groups, including Polluters Out, which really focuses on systemic action through getting polluters out of our banks, our universities, our climate negotiations, and our government, both just in general around the world and in regional areas. So that's very quick about that. And Turning Green, which really focuses on education and encouraging students and youth to switch from what we call a conventional lifestyle to a conscious lifestyle, living in a way where you are aware of the impacts you have on the world and working towards minimizing those impacts and making them positive. So that's the organizations I'm with. A little bit of my own background and what I do. I am a master's student right now. I am studying ecology with a focus on plant-fungal interactions and also fungal and heavy metal interactions at the moment. My passion is really understanding all the connections we have in nature. So just as a little example, right behind me is a watercolor I did of a plant I am studying at the moment. This plant in its roots has fungi and bacteria. The fungi and bacteria are able to change the nutrients the plant brings up, causing the plant to be able to attract ants that actually defend it from herbivores and also pollinators. So it's a native plant to my area and it attracts bumblebees. And it's able to change the attraction based on what's in its roots. There's a lot of research right now going on to what's happening underground and how that is affecting above ground. And it's become extremely important to the environmental movement and sciences in general. I've become really interested in a group of fungi that you will never really see above ground. To really get a good look at them, you need some fancy stains and a microscope, but they affect about 80% of all plants we have. And they're helping them achieve obtaining water and all these other things. And so that's where my interest has been. I'm very interested in soil. So some of the solutions I personally have been learning about as a farm, as a farmer, as a student farmer during my undergrad years is regenerative agriculture, learning how we can, grow both in farms and back home, about learning how we can grow in a way that helps heal the earth. So along with my fungi is understanding how the fungi affects the plants we grow and what plants are growing and helping them grow better in a way that affects, our pollinators, our herbivores, our anything that eats those herbivores and all the way up. And there's a lot of solutions there that I've personally been learning about. I've been trying to push forward both through my community and my activism. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from. That's my background. And I'm happy to go into more of that as we go on. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Ilana. That was amazing. That's so informative. I'm learning so much, and it's really inspiring to see. I think just, you know, the comments in the chat as well is like, you're giving so much hope to all of us, especially the older generations, knowing that younger generations are really stepping up in such a passionate and knowledgeable and dedicated way. So yeah, so it's just your blessing to have you with us. And yeah, looking forward to the round as well, speaking about water, because yeah, you guys have created an amazing water toolkit. I shared the link in the chat for anybody who wants to see. So now moving on to Maddy Harland, who I always reach out to when it comes to solutions. Maddy Harland is a pioneer of permaculture and regenerative practices. That's why. She co-founded publishing company Permanent Publications in 1990 and Permaculture magazine in 1992. She's the author of Fertile Edges, Regenerating Land, Culture, and Hope, and The Biotime Log. Maddy also co-founded the Sustainability Center in Hampshire and is a trustee of Common Earth, a non-profit regenerative development program working with the 54 Commonwealth nations to develop projects that are social, cultural, environmental, and economically regenerative and scalable. Maddy, welcome.
Thanks, Chad.
Thank you for joining us. Over to you.
It's always difficult to think, well, what do I need to say about our work? I think essentially we are independent media, so we work on many different platforms to raise awareness across the world. And we began life, as you mentioned, forming a print magazine and publishing books about permaculture and regenerative practices in the 90s. But that very soon moved on to digital editions of magazines and books as well, and a free ebook program, and also sharing information on websites. We started permaculture.co.uk in 1996, back in the day of steam-driven websites, and we built social media platforms and a YouTube channel. And so really our aim has been to produce quality media across many different genres and try and reach as many different people as possible, and not make it all paid for media, but have, obviously we have to survive, so some of the stuff is paid for media and some of it is completely given away free of charge. And so that's one part of what we do. We feel very deeply that we live in a very disconnected cultures, mainly, particularly in the West, and that part of our job is to help people to build connections. So we start off very simply with permaculture, and people tend to think that it's about gardening and growing food and composting and not polluting our local environment. And that's kind of the initial baby steps and hooks that we use to engage with people from all sorts of different backgrounds and walks of life. And then when we've got them interested, then we want to introduce a wider perspective. So permaculture is very much about earth care, but it's about people care and also limits to growth and fair shares. So we want to have I suppose, a Trojan horse kind of approach that looks at not only very well documented growing techniques and a return to regenerative techniques and agroecology, but we also want to take people on a deep journey of their own empowerment and their own sense that they are, with small actions collectively, able to do big things. So this is part of our strategy and the portfolio of many different types of information that we share. And we've been involved with all sorts of different educational programs. I was one of the early founders of Gaia Education. We are involved with trying to get, for instance, the UK government a little bit more engaged with agroecology and moving away from a purely industrial agricultural model. We, as you mentioned, Jan, we work with the Commonwealth through a not-for-profit Common Earth, and that is trying to identify best practice projects in the world and learn from them, and then seed that knowledge into other Commonwealth countries in the world and beyond as well. So, and that's very much in its early stages. Yeah, it's commonearth.com. But fundamentally, it's really about information, knowledge, and empowerment. And a couple of years ago, we set up a pretty modest prize called Permaculture Magazine Prize. And that prize is very focused on awarding sums of money to permaculture projects that would not normally get access to funding, probably because they're so out there and don't have the skills or the connections to get the NGO funding money for their projects. And we award this to projects all over the world every year. And most of them are from what is termed the developing world. We prefer to call it the 2/3 world, because that's often where the money is most difficult to find for these kind of projects. And what we're looking for is replicable projects that benefit their local community, not only in terms of biodiversity, but also in terms of the well-being and health and economic independence of that local community. And it's very much about skill sharing and replicating those skills in the watershed and beyond. And the reason we're doing this is in part for to support communities that possibly wouldn't have that kind of access to funds and support, but we're also doing it because we want to tell their stories. So I'd just like to end with this thought that we are storytellers. That's our job, and we want to tell the stories of the world, because the world is full of terrible stories. Our conventional corporate media thrives on gloom and doom and the unkindness of humanity. Our films, our Hollywood films are dystopic disaster movies. There aren't really that many films about how whole communities have transformed lives with kindness. We're into destruction and disaster and the adrenaline of doom, rather than the wisdom and inspiration of kindness and creativity. So we're here to tell the stories of creativity that perhaps might not necessarily get so much exposure in the world. And so our YouTube channel alone has had about 4 million people turn up and view on it. And that's just one of little segment of our whole media portfolio. So we know that we are, over a period of time, with effort and consistency over 30 years, reaching many, many people, millions of people indeed, with the different ways of telling stories that we're presenting. And essentially we're trying to imagine and make create clarity about what is this better world that is possible. And that works, as I said, on many levels. So it works on the simple levels of what individual people can do. It works on the level of what nations can do with things like their farming policy and agroecology and conservation and climate mitigation programs. And it works also on what we, the world, could do collectively once we turn our focus away from this industrial growth model that has pretty much destroyed a huge part of our planet, turn our eyes away from that and towards a better future. But we are at the very doorway of no going back with this. And I am aware that after 30 years of work, things have only become worse, and that there is a huge urgency to find the hooks that will transform the consciousness of humanity and steer us away from destruction. So I'm going to leave as a solutionist on that note and open to other people on the panel. Thank you for listening.
Wow, thank you. Indeed, that's a very poignant observation. I think, especially, given the global situation and the crises that just seem to be getting worse, we really need to think and act outside of the box. As so many have said, we cannot expect to transform the existing systems and structures with the same kind of thinking that created them. So thank you, Maddy. I look forward to discussing more with you and others. And thank you for coming out of your hibernation. You said you were in retreat for a long time, so very much appreciated that you joined us. So next we'll be moving to Jamaica Stevens. Jamaica is author and curator of multimedia project Reinhabiting the Village, Co-Creating Our Future. She's also an experienced event producer, workshop leader, group facilitator, educational program designer, community organizer, project manager, writer, and life coach. Passionate about earth stewardship, collective evolution, village ethos, and collaborative culture, Jamaica is in service to supporting the conditions for planetary flourishing and a regenerative renaissance. Wow. Welcome, Jamaica. Great to have you with us. Over to you. And you asked me for the regenerative question that I forgot to share with the others so far. So the question for you and Fabiano, if he wants, how do you see your work contributing to the global ecosystem of emerging and ancient solutions that address the escalating crises we face and support the transition to a regenerative culture? So thank you, Jamaica.
Well, it's an honor to be amongst you all, including the beautiful chat window. There's a lot of wonderful things happening there as well. I, like Maddy, sort of say, where's my best inroad to help share the work that I do? I think that the fundamental kind of core of what I seek to do is to be a catalyst for cooperative and regenerative cultures and to play a weaving function amongst the many players. I have an eclectic background. I've worked with many organizations and many projects and have helped incubate a lot of initiatives. And I tend to do that because part of the work that I really focus on is what are the frameworks and processes necessary for collaborative cultures to emerge, and what is a regenerative culture? How do we apply these sort of concepts of regenerative agriculture or maybe regenerative medicine, but now apply that in a context to human cultures and human systems? What does that mean in terms of our ability to not only sort of be sustainable and maintain a status quo of our current existing systems, which we're watching don't really serve the planet or its inhabitants, into a truly flourishing regenerative culture that can actually, humans can participate in being apex collaborators with nature to create human systems aligned with nature and in support of regenerating not only the planet, but our ability to continue for the generations to come. So my work is eclectic. Right now, I would say the focus that I'm working through the lens is with VillageLab, where we are looking at designing those commonsing patterns, those frameworks and processes for scalable ecosystems to emerge. Oftentimes what I'm witnessing is there's amazing solutions, there's amazing solutionaries, people doing work all around the world, as Paul Hawken so beautifully illustrated in Blessed Unrest. And yet often there is a siloization or a disconnection. We don't realize that we haven't made visible yet fully. I think that's now starting to change just how participatory and creative and innovative humans are at addressing the challenges, particularly bioregionally. So with that disconnect, what I'm seeing is we're sort of redundant, maybe even competitive, or we just don't realize that there's others out there doing this work. So a lot of the work that I'm focusing right now is weaving ecosystems of players together. I've been hosting these stakeholder design sessions and these sort of these mastermind think tanks, collaboratories, we're calling them, of bringing together conscious business leaders, leaders at the helm of networks, people doing the good work on the ground and also now virtually especially, and trying to weave more cohesion and coordinated efforts amongst a global populace, and looking at how we do support bioregional efforts, because I believe that's where we have the biggest power to make impact, is looking at bioregional solutions and becoming more resilient, more adaptive, more innovative, and more empowered to take charge of our own ecosystems, our own communities, and the things that we need to make sure that people are flourishing. And yet we have to do that at a coordinated and global scale, and we have to do it immediately. So a lot of my efforts have been, how do we weave together these folks into a pattern that allows for agility and diversity, and it doesn't become the one mono organization. It's more of learning to become an organism and actually patterning after nature, how we can look around us. The answers have already been here the entire time. You asked the question about ancient. To me, the answers about how we live in a complex adaptive system have always been here, and that the biggest work we can do is to help grow the capacity for humans to reintegrate ourselves as part of the living earth, as part of living systems. And then once we heal that idea of separation from the living earth, where we've removed ourselves, and then all the systemic problems that have scaled on top of that original disconnection, that if we can focus efforts on reconnecting ourselves and healing that wound, then we begin to watch that the answers are already all around us. And now what we're looking at is, how do businesses and organizations and communities look to the patterns of nature to model our human systems? So one of the projects I'm really excited about, among many, is working with board members of the Buckminster Fuller Institute and Planetary Care to actually galvanize an ecosystem that is looking at patterns of nature, to look at how we can flourish as a movement. Right now we are networks, but we haven't yet galvanized as a movement of global citizenry that are reclaiming our ability to actually make the changes at local levels at a global scale. So that's a big part of my work. Certainly the frameworks through VillageLab, we have a program called Regen Commons, which weaves regen solutions, regen economy, and regen education as various initiatives within a commonsing pattern. That's the other thing I'm working through with Global Ecovillage Network North America. Right now, along with supporting Ecovillage movement, we're focused on regenerative education and building an ecosystem of players who want to help create access for people around the world to have more ability to participate in regenerative practices. So we need to grow capacity right now. We need to inform and educate, inspire, and make more accessible for not only sort of an elite few or a certain number of people maybe already tuned in, but for all citizens to be able to grow and reskill ourselves and have a consciousness that is aware of our impact and also our potential, and that can participate in not only the world that's been helping transition that, but actually innovate the world that's coming. So I love playing at the intersectionality of weaving together the people already doing this work and trying to find commonality, looking to create, just looking to create more of a sense that really we're stronger together, and looking at also what are the challenges, what are the thresholds we need to learn to navigate that keep us separate, healing this story. I love how, Maddy, you brought that there's a narrative right now that humans are inherently destructive. And as long as we continue to perpetuate that narrative and we don't shift the narrative and realize we're having a rite of passage, like a great hero's journey, moving from the hero archetype to a steward archetype, which means we have a lot of work to do to turn around and be a part of the restoration, the rebuilding, and the renewal, and also kind of get out of nature's way and minimize our influence so that the healing can really begin. So my passion is around helping to change that narrative and helping to curate stories that support a consciousness shift that then can create the conditions for a shift in action and a change in behavior. That can't come until we even realize that we have more influence than we understand to shapeshift how together we're going to move forward into a future that's more flourishing for everyone. So a lot of the work I love to do is just around what are the cultural tenets that we need to learn to adopt in order to shapeshift our choices and behaviors, and how do we do that at a global impact? It can't just be Western minds, can't just be privileged few. It has to be all citizens remembering that they are inherently a part of this story and happening not only in the planet, but a universal story, and that we're on a very special, beautiful, rare blue jewel in the middle of space. Like, this is a unifying factor, that here we are all on the same planet, and that it's a crisis moment that I think precipitates a collective evolutionary shift towards a more intelligent and compassionate and responsible humanity. So that's what I love to play in as a brief overview. I certainly have many other things to share, and I'll put some links in the chat window to some of the work that I do and some cool solutions platforms that we're in the middle of incubating. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Wow. Thank you so much, Jamaica. Very inspiring to see to sense into really that weaving capacity, that holistic overview of really kind of how to really nurture and nourish and catalyze the existing potential within the whole. There's so much of it which is latent, and thank you for what you're doing. Some reason when you talk about the education and the importance of education and bringing in these new narratives, for some reason I was seeing like this clip in the movie V for Vendetta, where he hijacks the TV station and basically plays his own video. And it's almost like that's really what needs to happen at a global scale. We just need to really somehow find a way. I don't know if this is like a revolutionary, we can talk about it, but hijacking the airwaves, I think, for the good, I think would be an interesting topic for discussion. So we'll save that for the next round. Thank you so much, Jamaica. So coming up next is Fabiano Portal, a dear old friend. So many of my old friends who I've actually never met in person, but only online. Fabiano is a huge inspiration. He is a journalist, digital media specialist, and co-founder of the Global Regeneration Institute, which is an initiative to create a wiki, a library of solutions. He is also a mentor for startups focused on sustainability and the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN at the Founder Institute, which is one of the biggest pre-seed accelerator startups in the world. So Fabiano, it's great to have you with us, brother. And thank you so much. I know you've been even like brushing up on your English to prepare for this presentation. It's such dedication, and so grateful for you being here with us at this time. Over to you, brother.
All right, Ian. So everybody, it's really an honor to be here and to share what we are creating here from Brazil to the world. And this social organization called Global Regeneration Institute is a movement that would like to create a hub that we can put all the solutions and all the initiatives that can improve our world. And so we do that like one horizontal management. We are a collective. We're not. We have. You can repair that. I'm a official president, but I always would like to say like I'm a co-founder, because we are organized as like a collective. And we would like to start this presentation just like make a link with this phrase that you put on the title of this meeting, because all the solution already exists. Is like a mantra for us, because we all the time say that. And if we have all the solution in our world, why we don't have a place on the internet that we can put all the solution? Why we don't have like a Wikipedia of solution? And with this question inside our hearts, we start to create like 2 years ago the Global Regeneration Institute library. To all the people around the world can collaborate and insert your solutions on the platform. So I will share my screen because it's really easy to you see how this is work. And so we can access like a globalregenerationinstitute.com. We have 14 language, even Mandarin and Korean. And here is the portal. Here we have a keyword that you can put related to the solution. So, for example, it's a solar. Here appear all the solutions that have been enrolled on our portal with this name on the title or on describe with this name solar. We have more than 700 solutions from more than 50 countries inserted here. Here we have the latest registered solutions. Here you can see that everything that was put here. Here we have a calendar that you can see the events and event that you can. It's good, like in tune with this movement. And here start like as a library, you have to be organized. You have to organize all the solution in special areas, and we create, like not create, we are inspired by the astral. I don't know why, because this is this born in a meditation, this Global Regeneration Institute born in a meditation. And this area is like the essential area, the 8 main areas of humanity that you have to put the solution, you have to organize all the solution in all these areas. So the first one is the energy. Each area is divided by 3 areas to facilitate, to be more easier to find the solution. So energy is divided by storage, production, and streaming. We have home that is divided by architecture, construction, and materials, and we have here useful studies and content that we go to a Google Docs. We have more than 500 books, articles, and contents about this, the area, each area. You have food, and food is divided by agriculture, composing, and conservation. We have water, and so today we talk a lot about this because it's one of the main areas. Access and treatment, storage and extraction. We have transport and solution about loads, about collective or about individual that include familiar as well. We have medicine that include diagnosis, prevention, and treatment. And we have consciousness that is the forgotten area in many parts, but it's obvious that is very important area. And so solution is divided by self-knowledge, understand of the world, and virtues and values. And we have the biggest area, that is the system. The system is divided by education, that's for us is the most important part, because without education, we can't build a new world. We have environment that include fauna and flora, and we have society that includes solution for politics and economics, because it was a complexity created by the humans. You have here these main parts. So this is the 8 areas, and I will enter here just to see how it works, how I choose the water, because we are talking about water today. And here I have all the solution that was enrolled on this area. And for example, I enter here, sunny clean water, solar energy to produce clean water. And here, how we present all the solution. We have name, email, and phone directly to the responsible for the solution. We work a lot to find this number, to find this email. This is very important to find this, because we believe that we can be a connective, like a bridge between the people that are looking for and the inventor and the creator of the solution. But sometimes we can't find, because not is easier to find exactly the phone. Here we have websites, we have country, state, and city. We have all the social media links. We have the description that you can click here and see more. We have solution status, and so here you can see it's like ready to use, prototype is ready, and research stage, like that. Here is a sustainable goals of the ONU. You can see here which one that's he attended. Here we have a video, we have photos, we have a gallery of pictures here that you can see more. And you have the location. You can put on the map and go there to meet them. And here's attention. This content of this page was included in the collaborative way and approved by a monitoring committee of the Global Regeneration Institute. There is something wrong. Click here and let us know. It's like the Wikipedia that you can say that something wrong, and we go there and correct everything. And so this is our work here, and we are work to not just show the solution, but our dream is help them to grow up, help them to with mentoring, with investing, founding, and other things like that, just not to show them, but to help them to grow up. And so we are creating this global solution library that is created by many hands. We have people in 5 countries now. This is doing your activities in tune with us, and everyone is totally invited to join us. We need to spread this initiative for all over the world, because we believe that we need to know that all the solution already exists. And we don't know that. We just know about the disaster, about everything that, and Maddy say one thing perfect, because the Hollywood and the movies is terrible, because we create all the things for destruction of our world, even a tree that like a poison and people, I don't know, and so we have to create a new narratives. We have to create a new ways to see the futures. And we believe that we started by the solutions. The solutions is like a base, is like the first step. The people have to know that all the solution already exists. And why we don't put on the reality? Why we don't come then to reality? And we know that all our history, we have many deaths, we have many poison people that was creating amazing thing. We know that, but now we are living on an information age. We are living on an ultra-connective age, and everything is on the internet. We believe that we can be strong like a net, a really worldwide net that we can put all the solution there, all the initiative there. And again, we are not a boss or a leader of this movement. We are just a canal, we are just a bridge to come this to reality. And so everyone is totally invited to join us to co-creating, to adapt for your reality, and come with us, because we think that we have to unify these solutions in one portal. As we have Wikipedia, as we have YouTube, as we have Google, we have to put everything on your same portal. And all the people all around the world have to know that, oh, right, no, it's a Global Regeneration Institute library. I can put there my research solution stage there. I can, so exactly that. We have to be the hope for these people. And exactly that. I invite you to join us, and globalregenerationinstitute.com. I will put here in the chat as well. And thanks a lot. I'm really, it's an honor for me to stay here. And let's together, my friends.
Wow. Thank you, brother. Wow, amazing. Beautiful presentation. It's really such an inspiration to see this, you know, to really kind of see that this is available. And I think, you know, the chat has been going on fire because people are just like, wow, this exists, you know. So yeah, wonderful that you're here and to share. And there are, you know, I mean, in all good faith and acknowledgement, there are diverse solutions platforms out there, and I've shared a solutions awareness toolkit that has links to different solutions platforms. And I think ultimately, as someone said in the chat as well, this is really about, you know, rising above our organizational differences and boundaries to really find the best ways to bring these solutions together in a way that everybody can access them, and that we all really work together and find ways to share our databases so that we can really unify this information, because, you know, it's all out there. And what you just showed, it's like, I think for many people, it's almost like turning the lights on, you know, and it's like, it's already here. And this is what we can really hope to do for all of humanity, because everybody's in the dark when it comes to solutions. So most of the people are feeling hopeless because all they hear is the bad news. They have no idea about, you know, any solutions, let alone libraries full of solutions. So amazing to see your work, brother. Thank you so much to you and your team and all the time you've put into this. And yeah, clearly the response has been amazing. So hopefully this will really help boost the interest as we move forward together. So now as we go into the second round, we've got about 25 minutes left, and it would be great to have a bit of time at the end as well to see if there are any questions and for open discussion. But we did think to just kind of focus, because indeed the theme of water is so present, you know, everywhere right now, and especially in all the sectors and all the regenerative sectors. We thought it could be really interesting to see how your work really relates to this foundational element for regeneration. So maybe we'll continue the circle and circle back to Ousmane in Senegal. Are you with us, brother? Yay.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jan, and I'm really, I feel really inspired from, you know, by all I heard. Okay, right. Okay, something also I forgot to mention a little earlier, because here we are in a different, we are in a very particular context where people do not read, do not write, or most of them. And REDES uses theater to educate people. We use educate women for the nutrition of their kids, or for Ecovillage design, or to fight against plastic waste, or to encourage, people also to educate their own children. So, and water also is really, really important here in this part of the world. I mean, in the Sahel, we are very close to the desert. Here also the temperatures are like, really, really hot, extreme. And the global agreement, the Paris Agreement, is to keep local temperatures down to 4 degrees Celsius, 2 degrees Celsius, but here in this area, it's already around 4 degrees Celsius. And as a result, our lakes, our rivers are evaporating very quickly, and it is more and more difficult, to get water. In addition, also the rivers are also filled with lots of farming poisons, chemicals are drained into the rivers. So it is becoming a growing challenge for people to find water to drink, or for the animals to drink. And then REDES is developing a very important water program. In the past 12 months, we have been able to dig and offer 27 wells in different villages, including in Mauritania. And there is always a spiritual ceremony that goes along with the digging of the wells. And people pray, and also this is because also spirituality is really so much, in this area. So with the REDES program, we have been able to offer 2,000 people have access to clean drinking water. And also these wells also allow people to grow some vegetables, to grow some fruit trees in the different places. And also you understand the importance of having water, especially in this time of pandemic. People need to drink, the animals need to drink, and also to also keep clean. So and the REDES now is also working on a project to create a food forest in the north of Senegal. And in March, just before the pandemic started, we had a group of students from the US, from different parts of Senegal, who came together also support this, because we believe also if there are any the transformation will be supported by the youth. I mean, when students, international students and local students come, this creates a lot of enthusiasm in the host village. And this way also we plant trees, we sing together, we dance together, we get to learn about each other's culture, and also while creating also abundance in the local villages. And also, of course, in this time of globalization, it is very, very important for the young people here to feel really, to know their cultural heritage, to be proud of their own roots, and not to copy what they see on TVs or on in films. And then it's important to celebrate this and keep connected with our own local cultures, because now especially in the villages, I mean in the cities, people eat what the television tells them, or eat what advertisement tells them. And for us, it is really important to reconnect with the traditional heritage, and also be open to the rest of the world at the same time. And of course, if any of you feels cold, inspired, and then wants to join, yes, please, we hope to have caravans of people coming here to support local communities. And again, Africa is not a dangerous place. It's very open, very warm, and we will be happy to host many of you who would like to come. And thank you.
Wow. What a warm invitation, literally. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ousmane. I'm very, very much looking forward to continuing our work together and learning more of what you're doing. Ilana, welcome.
Hello. So in relation to water and the World Water Law, with a focus on Re-Earth Initiative, as I mentioned before, I believe the first week that we did as Re-Earth Initiative past our campaign really focused on water. We held webinars, we gave challenges, we created a toolkit that is currently available in 6 different languages, and I believe we have a few more coming on. But one thing we're hoping, we'll be revisiting water again with a few different themes. Currently we'll be in about a month or so visiting oceans. We again are focused a lot on, you know, educating people. What's the problem here? How can you help complete a solution? Like, what actions can you take? What pledges can you make to create this change that we need? We have already focused on water accessibility, water and climate change. We'll probably be focusing more on different ecosystems and how that relates to all of this. So we're very much about that. We're going to be pulling it into the other topics. And then more personally, for my own research interests, as I talked about, a lot of stuff happening below ground, especially with the fungi that we don't fully understand yet. It's been happening for so long, and we really don't know too much about it because you're not going to see it be very bright and colorful above ground. It's not going to be huge. It can be hard to see. But they're really important to how water flows in our world. We're talking about fixing these natural ecosystems. Well, if we don't have the fungi there to do it, the plants that we need to bring in won't be able to get the water they need. That is one of the purposes of these fungi in the root system, is bringing that water in. What's below ground is also cleaning the water. So when it hopefully gets down into the rivers, it's hopefully clean. You can put plant-specific areas to do that. So I kind of study a little bit of that, again, more towards the fungi plant side, but it's an area I'm interested in. So yeah, there's a lot we don't know about the natural world that really will impact how we get water and what our water is like, whether it is drinkable or not. So very quick overview.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So moving on, Maddy, would you like to say a few words on how you're water?
Sure. So I would begin with the position that we all live downstream, and in our Western industrialized culture, we have lost a sense of connection with the village well, both socially as a place to congregate and also as a place not to pollute and not to over deplete with agricultural practices. For us, water as an element has become an extremely abstract, chemicalized commodity that is sold to us by corporate companies, many owned outside of the country that we live in. So really a lot of work in the industrialized nations for us is about re-alerting our consciousness to water. And I remember a story of Helen MacArthur, first woman to circumnavigate the globe in a yacht on her own. And when I met her, she told me how one of the deepest lessons for her in this global journey around the world's oceans was to know that she had a limited amount of water, fresh water for drinking, and a limited amount of power. And that once she was through it, although she could desalinate water, those pure resources were utterly limited, and it taught her huge lessons about how precious they are. And indeed, that whole trip totally transformed her life, and she gave up sailing and got into promoting the circular economy and sustainable models. So we all live downstream, and in a way it's about reconnecting the broken bonds that we have with our elements and with water. So on a practical level, we've been presenting all sorts of different ways of harvesting rainwater for gardeners. We've looked at conservation initiatives. Liana mentioned mulches and mentioned fungi, and one of the way that we've been promoting conservation is through mulching, both on the farm and in the garden, but not only just to cover bare soil and mimic nature, but also to encourage this rich mycorrhiza but in below the soil, because we know that one, it can harness and lock up nutrients, it can sequester carbon, and plants that are in this healthy living soil environment actually require less watering, because they naturally have a capacity to suck up in more water through the mycorrhiza, through the medium of the fungi. So we've looked at these kind of practical things. We've published around swales, which are ditches on the contour. Basically, they have two functions. They harvest water as it runs down the slope on a landscape, and they also harvest nutrients. So you plant along the downside of the swale, and you can secure the soil and grow more nutrient-hungry plants in all sorts of different climates. The advantage to this is that all the debris of severe weather events, whether they're a monsoon or a temperate rainfall cloudburst, don't just get washed into the rivers and then affect the breeding ground of baby fish. Little fish need pure oxygenated water in which to thrive. So when we have agricultural runoff, we not only have chemical runoff, which is disastrous in itself, but we have particulates going into the rivers that affect the capacity of the river to work as a healthy ecosystem, and particularly affect the breeding of all the creatures in the river. So that's another thing that we've looked at. We've made a film about the reintroduction of beavers into Cornwall in the southwest of England, and not just looking at it as a nice keynote species rewilding project, which of course it is, because we haven't seen beavers in this country for hundreds of years, but there are huge benefits to beavers. We've learned many things about how they diversify species habitat, how they create breeding pools for insects that then feed up the food chain, feed fish, feed bird life, and ultimately then support mammals up the food chain as well. So looking at rewilding of keynote species to fill an ecological niche for the benefit of the entire ecology, not just the idea that we want this one particular species in it. And we've also, the farmer who runs a regenerative, it's a dairy and beef farm, has actually found that there have been benefits to the beavers, because they hold the water in the landscape and have actually made the pasture more productive, more fertile. So we've also look at riparian edges. So instead of grazing animals right up to the edge of rivers and streams, fencing them off the stream so that those edges can regenerate and hold the sponges that will hold water when you have times of flood, and also hold water when there are times of drought. So not using every single piece of land because we think that that's going to be the most productive way of using land, but holding back land and deliberately diversifying out of pasture into agroecological and agroforestry systems because we want to diversify the species and the habitat and create much more resilient landscapes that are not so vulnerable to flooding. But I want to come back just to end there. There are many, many techniques. There's also the whole story of ocean permaculture and creating marine permaculture arrays that rise and fall in the current and are like huge kelp rafts that cool pumped water. Water is pumped up into the rafts and cooled and then pumped down, so it creates a cycle, so that it creates a better oxygenated system, grows plankton, which supports small fish, which support bigger predators and larger plankton eating species like whale sharks. And this is another fascinating development of ocean permaculture, diversifying what we can do to both regenerate and create food systems for human beings as well. And really what is behind all of this is a worldview. And I love the work of the H. Shields Institute and John Young, really focused around rebuilding the village and rebuilding our ancient connections that live and thrive in our DNA and connect us. We were talking about connecting to nature. And one of the very simple techniques that John is suggesting to us is that we just spend 5 minutes a day in a sit spot. We don't hike up a mountain to the farthest, most beautiful place we know. We literally sit on our back door or in the park opposite our apartment, wherever we are, and we spend 5 minutes and we open our eyes, our ears, our sense of touch and our smell, so all of our senses to what's around us, and we start to imagine that our consciousness is really 360 degrees. We're not just these linear creatures that look ahead or look to the side. We are more like owls, and we have this ability to sense behind us and around us, as well as at front and below and above. And this is a very simple practice. It costs nothing, and it's something all of us can do. And if we sit and do that and observe and watch the birds flying by, watch the trees, if we live in a land with deciduous trees, watch the trees budding and coming into leaf and then dropping their leaves. If we do all these things, we start to rebuild in ourselves our sense of connection, our sense of ancient DNA with the landscape and the environment that we are living in, whether it's in a town or in the countryside. And then the idea that we all live downstream actually becomes more of a conscious reality and less of a kind of directive of how we've got to expand our consciousness. It becomes a reality. And that's the kind of thing, I love Riparian Edges. I love rewilding projects. I love swales and mulching and mycorrhiza. But what are the levers that connect ordinary people that don't cost anything and open their hearts to the beauty of the world? That's what really engages me, because if we can unlock those in all of us, then we can unlock dramatic change globally. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Thanks so much, Maddy. Gosh, so much information, so much practical information, especially around water. I just feel to mention very quickly that we're actually hosting, in support of the World Water Law, we'll be hosting a global open space event on July 26th, where we invite water solutionaries, activists, and stewards to really come and share their knowledge and really start to see how we can make the World Water Law and World Water Year 2021 a global reality. So Jamaica, over to you.
Thank you. Gosh, Maddy, yeah, that was absolutely beautiful. And I'm so appreciative of all of the efforts and focus on water, because I do believe it's the unifier. It's one of those commons elements that actually unifies all of humanity. And I think that if we focus on water and our relationship with water, I think that there's a lot there that can help dispel the differences between us. So I love that we're having this dialogue. I wanted to share screen if I could for a minute, Jan. Along with, can you see my screen currently? Are we good?
Yep.
Great. Along with, you know, the work, a lot of the work I do is to amplify the impact of work of others. And then there's things that are my personal passions. And one of those passions is that in my own effort to become an integrated person of place, to become an integrated apex collaborator with nature, I've been in a meditation around where can I share my gifts, and in order to impact and actually commune again with particular elements of nature. And the waters, particularly the rivers and fresh waters, are what came to me as a place that I could offer my support in terms of being an activist and an advocate. So I'm incubating this project. It's exciting and a little nerve-wracking to share here because it's so dear to my heart and it's just birthing. But essentially, the project that I'm currently working on, that's my own versus the work I do with others, is this For the Waters platform, which is a social movement for watershed stewardship, with the core thesis being that we're in a watershed moment and a ripe opportunity to actually transform our relationship with nature. And that as people of place, reintegrating our relationship as people of place to being knowledgeable, to being eco-literate about our own environment and bioregion and policies and systems, that we can actually become, again, a bioregional citizenry at a global level that can advocate for and better steward our watersheds together. And one of my core theses is that in order to actually engage people to make change, it has to be from a relationship of reciprocity. We have to be in love. It actually has to stem from when you love something, you show up to protect it. And as long as there's a disconnection from our relationship with water and the fact that water is life, then I don't think we actually, often I'll say in the Western culture, I think Dr. Ousmane actually shared that in African culture, it's centered because water is so precious. But in places where there seems to be water richness, I think there's a disconnect from exactly how precious that resource is. You just turn on a tap and it flows. And I think that changing the Western relationship with water is essential, especially right now. So the For the Waters platform is a multimedia storytelling project looking at personal narratives of stakeholders along watersheds that can start sharing a story from multiple cultural perspectives and different, even industry, farmers, communities, citizens, advocates, indigenous relationship with water. We need to begin to tell these stories and have a place to have the story of the rivers and the story of the waters emerge through personal narratives and relationship with those who are influenced by and influencing watersheds. And then to create a peer-to-peer social networking community resource platform specifically focused on the waters to, again, weave together all these amazing resources and people, but create it as a social platform. I'm already working on a platform called Communitas Zone, on a connective platform. So I already have access to, and I'm building out this place that's more purposeful to collaborate, to have a resource library, to have social communities focused together on how we amplify our understanding and eco-literacy around water and watershed stewardship. And so along with that, I don't think it's enough just to tell the stories and to have a place to learn and share as a community. I also think we need to grow community capacity to be water advocates. And so creating the on-the-ground events, forums, symposiums, and summits that essentially help activate local citizenry to participate in watershed stewardship and also to form relationships of connection with place is a big part of the project. And then to give leadership training and tools to those community organizers. So not only is it enough to sort of bring them together and to inspire them, but it's also vital, I believe, to empower them and to give people tools in order to start participating in the change they want to see in their area. And doing that then on a global level, really connecting those, creating that global network of community-led initiatives that are looking at watershed stewardship. So this is the project that I'm launching, and essentially, you know, there'll be a multimedia version of the storytelling, both video storytelling and an e-journal, and then a printed journal. The platform itself, like I said, it's already in prototype, but it's super interactive and integrative, and a really special place to be able to bring together these voices and focus together on how we can grow our capacity as humans to support the waters. Definitely, again, the local community forums and storytelling symposiums, and then regional storytelling symposiums, the leadership training. There's this WaterWise labs that I'm imagining, which is again the how do we grow the capacities. So how do we teach and train community organizers so that they can be active in their own area, and then provide a WaterWise community toolkit so citizens can begin to participate. And then ultimately, again, doing this on a networked level, at a global level, I think is essential, that we have to become allies. There's nothing more precious than water. I would say water and our children to me, and our trees and the fungi. I mean, everything is very precious, but to me, the water is this unifying factor that if we can galvanize around, I think that then water and everything that it connects to and touches begins to be woven into this story of a planetary era versus sort of a disconnected, compartmentalized version. These systems actually are all connected. And I think water is that connector and that weaver and that unifier. So that's probably why it showed up for me personally as a place where I want to impact change and be in better relationship. I loved what you said, Maddy, for the sake of, part of it is what we can do on an intellectual level, certainly where we can put our action, where we can put our economic resources, where we can advocate and be activists. I also think it's essential that we just sit in place. You know, that we begin to actually open our senses to the intelligence around us and our own inherent intelligence. And by listening deeply and having the courage to act intuitively and move into new, innovative, emergent spaces, I think that the solutions already do exist. And you really named it, Jim, at the beginning. Why is it that humanity isn't already implementing them? And I think, again, it comes back to that inherent disconnection that we have, that nature is somewhere out there and not deeply intrinsically right here. So I think just that alone is a revolutionary act, is to sit in place and actually learn how to be a person in place, what that means, you know, how to be in a relationship of reciprocity with nature. So I think that's what I'll offer for the moment, other than to say I'm very excited about the water codes, because I think that we have to both do this from a upswell of a people's movement, from the bottom up, of engaged, empowered citizenry. And also we have to help transform the top-down systems. And we have to sort of play at both levels, I think, to impact change at a systemic and global level. So that's my offering for the moment. Thank you.
Wow. That's amazing. What a surprise. I heard you talking about this vision, but I had no idea you would be sharing it with us today. That's such a gift. Thank you. It's, I mean, such a condensed version as well, you know. It's really like, I really want to see how we can create space and time to go deeper. And I know that it's time for, our time is up. And just want to thank everybody. Wow, what an amazing, I could actually, you know, I was going to send a message to Jim asking if we can just double the time and keep going. But I know that, I mean, they've got every day, it's been going on for so long. And Jim, thank you so much for everything that you are holding to bring this through. I really see what you're doing as, it's like a meta solution, right? That is showcasing all the other solutions, and it's so vital, so important work. And really thank you so much for creating this space as well for us to come together at this time. Blessings, brother.
Thank you, Jan. And I would ask everybody to open up your videos so everybody can see you as we close. You guys did just a brilliant job. And you know, it's easy to get depressed with all the news out there, and then you go through a session like today with everything that all of you are doing, and you just think, whoa, how can we not succeed? I mean, how can we not succeed? And Ilana, Jamaica, you're just two brilliant young women. I mean, I have two sons your age, and sometimes I'm filled with grief that your generation is really ground zero. You're reaping the whirlwind, starting with the pandemic. And we founded Ubiquity University essentially to provide your generation with the mindset and skill set and tool sets that you need to come together to solve global problems. But to see the two of you, you're so articulate, you're so intelligent, you're so heartful, you're so everything that is required to save the world. And I just want to acknowledge it. I just want to acknowledge everything that you're doing, because it's coming out of the depths of your heart. And I think it may have been you, Jamaica, that made a seminal point for me, where you said we have to move from organic to organism. And I'd like to just underscore that for just a moment by something that I can actually put in the chat. But there's been very recently a crop circle that appeared in England that has been seriously studied now by some scientists, and it contains not only a replica of the COVID virus, but the key to the healing. And in light of moving from organic to organism here, it's just worth all of us underscoring the obvious, that the earth is alive, intelligent, compassionate, communicative, caring. Everything that we humans are, the earth is times 1,000. And we as creatures of the earth embody everything that she has in her capacious orb. And even in the depths of a pandemic that we have brought upon ourselves because we've ignored the connection to her, she's sending us signals. I mean, can you imagine that the earth is tracking the pandemic just like we are in the daily news, and actually giving a signal? If we would only pay attention to it, how we can ameliorate a pandemic of our own doing. That's how loving she is. And I was struck, when the pandemic took hold and we were all in lockdown, the smog disappeared, the birds started to sing, the rivers started to flow clean, the animals started to come out of hiding. And the way you all, Dr. Pame, the way you and Fabiano and Maddy, all of you, the way you are just passionately working your hearts out. I just want to say it's the earth doing it through you. And no matter what is happening in the world around us, let the earth flow. And you have done that in such an inspiring way. So Jan, my brother, thank you so much for convening this panel. It's been very, very moving to me each and every minute. It's you embody the future. You embody the future, and I really thank you for it. Now, tomorrow, we're going to go to another level of solution from a very unexpected quarter, our dreams. The earth is not only speaking to us through crop circles. Scientists have been noting that since the pandemic began, people have been reporting all kinds of very lucid, prescient dreams. And through our Chartres Academy at the Ubiquity University, we have a dream group that's been monitoring people's dreams from around the world as we've been navigating through the pandemic. And so I invite all of you to attend that session tomorrow and share your dreams. Because I bet you many of you have had very lucid dreams in the course of the pandemic. And again, I invite you just to consider, it's not you, little you, just having a dream. It's Earth dreaming through us to try to message us in a way that we can understand through the symbolic languaging of the Earth. The Earth speaks in numbers. The Earth speaks in geometry. The Earth speaks in dreams, in deep symbology, as another way that we can enter into organism with each other, an organism with the Earth. And so I really want to thank everybody today, and hope that you'll join us for the session tomorrow, which will deal with the solution that's provided for us by our own dreams. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same station, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock p.m. Central European Time here on Zoom. Bye, everyone.